Well, congratulations. The mere fact that you're listening to this module tells us that you have made it through the labyrinth of navigating yourself into a board seat. And that's exciting. And I'm sure that's going to be a great fit for your skills and your expertise. And the good news is you've just reached the end of one journey. And the other good news is you've just started on a brand new one.
So today we're going to talk about how to navigate what we're calling your rookie year. If you aren't familiar already with Stanford Women on Board's leading edge stewardship tools, we encourage you to use them and to see your first year as the first step in a much longer journey. Board service is fascinating, and none of us are ever done learning how to be a better, more effective, and more confident director.
Let's start by introducing ourselves. I'm Robin Matlock. I currently serve on 6 boards. 2 are public companies, 3 are private companies, and 1 is a nonprofit. I've been doing board service for 5 years, and my cumulative service is over 20 years of service.
My name is Mary Dent. I currently serve on 2 private corporate boards. I've been doing board service for, I guess, the better part of 10 years, and in total have served on 6 corporate boards, 1 public, 5 private, plus a lot of nonprofit boards.
So we want to start by spending some time on one of the most important concepts that we think you will need to digest as you're starting your board service. Being a great board member is going to draw upon everything you've done in your operational career. And it is a completely different job than you've ever done before. Deeply understanding this nuance and really fundamentally understanding the difference between your operational role and your board service is a very important part of your journey and is a complete paradigm shift.
I'll give you a visual that may help you see the difference between being an effective executive and an effective board member. So you could think of an executive team as a rainbow. Every member of the team is like one of the colors in the rainbow. They're responsible for a specific vertical area. So think of revenue as purple, the CFO is green, the general counsel is yellow. They come together in these specific areas of expertise to create a whole that's really powerful and, when it works well, beautiful. But a board is different. Much more than an executive team, it needs to function as a single unified body. Yes, it's made up of individuals, but those individuals need to come together to be effective. So using my rainbow analogy, boards don't want to be rainbows. They want to blend the colors of the rainbow to create white light. Effective boards take all the experiences and expertise around the table and turn it into a unified, cohesive whole. When a board goes from being a bunch of individual colors to creating white light, it can do 2 really important things. 1, it can direct that light in a specific direction, basically that setting strategy. And 2, it can illuminate the path forward, making it possible for management to move forward confidently and successfully, even when the road is bumpy or murky.
So with that analogy in mind, we want to highlight maybe some specific differences and prepare you, if you will. You are going to operate in an environment where you know much less about the business than the management team does, about almost every facet of the business. You are going to interact far less frequently with your fellow board members and with the management team than you are used to in the cadence of your operational world. Your job is not to do. Your job is to enable. You are going to have a shared objective with your fellow board members to focus on long-term shareholder or stakeholder value. Now, as an individual that sits in that boardroom, you are not going to get the same kind of direct feedback and read on how am I doing? How's performance? It's not black and white, like, goals and metrics and measurements, and you don't get that kind of direct feedback. So your feedback isn't going to be as clear about how are you performing as a board member. For all these reasons, really understanding and figuring out whether you're being effective or not, how to be effective, how to figure out if you're being effective is going to be a journey you're going to embark upon, frankly, for the rest of your career.
So now we'll switch from these high-level observations to some specific suggestions about things you can do during your rookie year. We're going to run through them pretty quickly given the time that we've got, and we think they're pretty understandable, at least at a high level, but feel free to reach out to us if you've got questions.
So the first thing is prepare. Preparation is key. And it goes well beyond just reading your pre-board materials. That's kind of a given, right? That is an assumed mandatory thing. You have to have the basics. But make sure you take time to process the materials and think strategically about what are the implications? What are the risks involved? Use some of your time to scale outside resources, analyst reports, press, bloggers, anything that is reflecting on the company. Make sure you're informed of what is going on externally. And then you might consider, if it's appropriate in your board, joining committee meetings that you're not officially on. That's a great learning opportunity. A lot is discussed and managed in committee meetings, and the more exposure you can get to the other committees, the quicker your onboarding process.
A second thing we'd recommend is to be intentional and slow down. As Robin mentioned, your job as a director is to positively influence the trajectory of an entire organization. And think about it, you've got to do that in a role where you're going to meet a handful of times each year. To do this job well, you need to relentlessly stay focused on the handful of things that really matter. For everything else, you need to learn to let go, how to trust management, and how to keep an eye on things without digging deep into them. If you do this, you'll be more effective and you'll avoid annoying your fellow board members and management with a lot of details.
Now, in this first year, I think one of the particular challenges is finding your voice and finding the right balance. You're on this board for a reason. They have definitely chosen you because of your experience and expertise and the value that you can add. Be thoughtful about engagement. Don't be passive. Don't be silent. Lean in, but be thoughtful about how you engage. You want to think about open-ended, relevant, and really high leverage type of questions and comments, things that trigger conversation, discussions. I would encourage you to observe the differences in tone between various engagements, board to CEO, board to management, board to board. Those are great conversations and great learning opportunities for you as a rookie. Pay attention on all levels. Look at the dynamics of when board members are having high impact and you think are exceptionally valuable. Think about when maybe it didn't go so well and you see another board member that maybe it wasn't as effective. It derailed the conversation. What sparks productive conversation? What kills it? So anyway, just be very cognizant about all these factors. I also encourage you to watch timing. Sometimes we're harboring a question or a comment. Maybe we're not quite leaning into it. The conversation is flowing and just as it's about to die, we intersect with our question. And now we've kind of opened up something that was just about ended. So think about timing. If you've missed your window, you can always take it offline, maybe, sit down with the chair or the CEO afterwards in a sidebar conversation.
Another recommendation is to actively work to build relationships. Again, as Robin mentioned, your job as a board member is to figure out how to be effective with and through people. That includes management and that includes the other directors. So you want to get to know people. Capitalize on face-to-face meetings. Come early, share meals, take a walk, whatever. Try really hard to leave emails and other distractions to the side. You don't get a lot of time with these people and you want to use it wisely. And pay attention to the people around you as people and as players in this collective endeavor so that you start to understand them and let them understand you.
And I think these opportunities to build relationships happen within the boardroom and board meetings, but also you might seek them outside of the traditional board calendar. If it's appropriate, see if you can connect coffee, lunches, just to build relationships and invest that time. Try to be very inquisitive and curious. Ask questions, learn. If the board onboarding process does not automatically assign you a board buddy, I would encourage you to try to figure out, is there a partner that you can form partnership with one of these board members that might be able to counsel you, give you a safe place to ask maybe some of the dumber questions and give you that opportunity to just make sure you're kind of staying on track and following everything that's going on.
It's also really important to understand what your impact is so that you can keep learning and adapting. So as Robin mentioned at the beginning, ultimately your effectiveness as a board member is measured by the positive impact you have on the organization. It's not the short-term reaction to what you say, it's the longer-term what you make happen. So for example, if one of my CEOs is on the wrong track and I tell him or her that in a way that he or she represents, they may say they agree, but unless they actually hear me and adapt their approach in light of my feedback, I haven't accomplished anything. So you need to work hard to understand your impact. You should absolutely ask people for direct feedback. And at the same time, you should understand that getting real feedback, honest feedback, can be tricky. A lot of boards are averse to conflict, and there are inherent power dynamics between you and members of the management team that may keep them from telling you the truth about how they see your performance. So you'll almost certainly want to go beyond asking for feedback and just pay attention. Watch what happens after you speak, in the meeting, after the meeting, over the longer term. Is the strategy more solid? Is management more effective? If so, you're being effective. And then keep learning and iterating and experimenting.
You know, there's so many resources out there to continue your kind of learning journey and how to ensure that you're really continue to develop as a board member. And I really encourage you to seek these resources. There are webinars and seminars and conferences, a wealth of content just tailored for corporate directors. And of course, Stanford Women on Boards has a robust set of tools that are available to you. You should exhaust those resources. But there are others. There's the NACD, which is the National Association of Corporate Directors, or Silicon Valley Directors Exchange, or there's Athena Alliance, there's Women on Boards, Women Who Lead. There's just really a plethora of resources. Be curious and continue to invest in your own development. Landing the board seat's really just the beginning. And by the way, a lot of companies provide a stipend or some kind of reimbursement if you're signing up for a conference. So usually those kind of continuing education reimbursements are available.
We're now going to switch gears again and talk about a couple of contradictions. Things that are, two apparently contradictory things are both true. And to be a board member, you need to recognize that these are real, recognize they're hard to navigate, and acknowledge that they're impossible to eliminate.
Okay, the first pesky contradiction is the fact that everything you've done professionally has prepared you for this new role. And everything about this new role is completely different from what you've done so far. Now, the trick is to show up as a seasoned board member, a board director, while you're kind of learning on the job. And it literally is like learning to ride a bike with no training wheels. For me, this was a bit of a catch-22 because on one hand, my operational DNA is why I was invited to boards, but I find it takes me a little bit of work to shed that DNA and apply it in the different nuanced context of the boardroom. And by the way, I don't always get it right. Sometimes I ask a question that's a little off the mark, or my comment is a little bit, just not that relevant. It's not going to be always perfect. Don't measure your engagement that way. Stay open, stay curious. I find for me, sometimes I need to put a little bit of an air gap when I'm thinking about something. I have my operational DNA, my instincts. I need a bit of a break, and then I can think about, okay, how do I apply this in the context of the discussion at hand? So anyway, it will be a journey and it's going to take some time. Make sure you give it that.
A second one we wanted to highlight is that you've got this tricky balancing act, which is you have to simultaneously hold on to your duty as a board member. Like, you are on the board, and that is a very serious responsibility. If boards aren't effective, companies can fail. At the same time, you've got to know that whatever questions come before the board, there's a ton that you don't and can't possibly know. So a strategy I'd recommend here is to focus on the quality of decisions rather than the substance of a decision. In your executive roles, you made decisions. You're not making decisions as a board member. You're really looking to see whether the executive team is making a good decision, whether the board is making a good decision. So you need to approach it differently. In my view, a good decision is one that is made for the right reasons, with the right involvement from the right people, considering the right information, and is honest about the pros and cons. Even from day one, even on an issue that you don't know a lot about, you can usually tell whether these four things are happening. So for example, pay attention if it looks like members of management are speaking past one another, or if everybody's rolling their eyes when the CEO says, "We all agree with this." Pay attention when people seem to be ignoring inconvenient possibilities. Interest rates will never rise. There couldn't be a war in Europe. Pay attention when it doesn't seem like members of management have the self-awareness to tell the difference between what they know, what they believe, and what they hope. Be curious and try to listen, but let go of needing to be right or needing to know what the right decision is that you would make if you were the decider.
Those are wise words. Now, this whole journey and this year in particular, it's going to feel new. You are going to navigate new circumstances. I've been on boards for 5 years and I still feel like I struggle to completely shed my operational DNA. That's okay. That's part of the journey. So it just kind of encourage you to be open to the fact that, you're probably used to running large organizations. You've got, a lot of control over every facet of outcomes and results. And you're going to now shift into a world where it's more of influence. It's more of, as Mary said, shining that light on a future trajectory. And we just experience you to go into that with a curious, open mind, always listening and learning, and engage in your own development in the process.
I'd say if you're feeling uncertain or uncomfortable, don't stifle that, embrace it. But equally, don't think that it's right. Figure out what's causing you to feel uncomfortable or uncertain, and then decide what to do in light of that. So for example, maybe it's unhealthy board dynamics. Maybe you've got a CEO or another board member who's acting like a bully or delegitimizing you. If that's what's happening, push back. Don't let them shut you down. You're there for a reason. Maybe, in contrast, it's healthy humility or curiosity. If so, slow down, figure out what you know, think about what you can contribute, and let others be out front when they're better qualified than you are to deal with a specific thing. Maybe it's your own baggage, right? We all have it. And if so, turn to a friend who can help reconnect you to the amazing person you are and feel solid that you're in this room for a reason. Just know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel this way as long as you figure out how to move beyond your discomfort and get back to the job that you're on the board to do.
So as we come into the close of this module, we want to offer you each of us one kind of final thought, maybe for you to take away. From my perspective, just getting into the boardroom is a major accomplishment. So congratulations. But it is not now this new time in your career where you're just coasting. I would really make sure you don't look at it that way. It is work. It is engaging work. It's going to take ongoing education and development to be the best you can be. And I just encourage you to lean into it with confidence and curiosity. Be a constant learner and you will definitely excel, because every year it'll get easier and easier and you'll be more and more effective. And we need women at the table. At the end of the day, we know we want more representation and we want you to be the best you can possibly be. Use the resources you have, especially the Stanford Women on Boards, this leading edge stewardship. There's so much content here. Make sure you take advantage of all those resources.
And my closing piece of advice would be to slow down. We spend so much of our executive lives learning to go fast. We multitask and we juggle and we get things done. I think if you unlearn the impulse to go fast, your board journey will be richer and more successful. When we're moving fast, when the adrenaline's high, we tend to come on too strong. We tend to come on with too much certainty and decisiveness. Moving slow lets us listen and learn and build the kind of deep relationships that are at the core of being a successful and effective board member. So congratulations. We hope this has been helpful, and we hope you really love your first year on a board.